We have impoundment, that 200 years of presidents had the ability, and the recognition that they had the ability to spend less than the ceiling. If you have $100 million that Congress says we want you to go and use for particular use, and you can do it less, for 200 years that was totally appropriate. And since the 1970s, that has changed and has led to massive waste, fraud, and abuse. Secondly, the very Impoundment Control Act itself allows for a procedure called pocket rescissions later in the year to be able to bank some of these savings without the bill actually being passed. It's a provision that has been rarely used, but it is there, and we intend to use all of these tools. We want Congress to pass it where it's necessary. We also have executive tools, and that is something we're going to be working with Congress. But it's very important to pass this bill and to see whether there is a will in both the House and the Senate to secure the votes for it.
That was the director of the Trump White House Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, explaining to a vicious and honestly bewildered press how he and the president were going to use their power to do what the president promised to do on the campaign trail. It was a true shock, as you could see, to the CNN host. But what exactly are rescissions? How does that process work? According to Wade Miller at the Center for Renewing America, who wrote, quote, when the president determines that all or part of any budget authority is not necessary to achieve the objectives or scope of a program, he may transmit a message to Congress proposing the amount of budget authority to be rescinded or reserved. According to law, this message to contain the specific project, program, and agencies involved, as well as the rationale, fiscal impact, and circumstances leading to the rescission request. The rescission is considered a privileged message, meaning Congress may consider it under an expedited process. And honestly, we need it now more than ever because, as the Cato Institute has addressed, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, while it did some great work, okay, it didn't cut anywhere near enough money to have made an impact on our critical national debt. Nor has the DOGE cuts been enacted by Congress in the most recent big, beautiful bill. In fact, most assessments of DOGE's impact show only about $175 billion in cuts. The national debt is exceeding $32 trillion. I'm joined now by the author of that piece, Wade Miller from the Center for Renewing America, to walk us through all the policy options that President Trump and Russ Vought have to rein in the excessive spending now that Elon Musk is out at DOGE. Wade, it's good to see you, and I'm particularly interested in what you have to say because it seems a lot of people are upset, believing that all this money is getting spent, right? But there's no plan to draw it back, and that DOGE has been a failure. But that's not necessarily the case, right? Because there is the rescission process by which there still could be major cuts. Can you explain?
That's correct. And keep in mind that DOGE is still ongoing. It's going to continue to go on. It's just going to have different leadership as Elon Musk takes a step back. To the first point, the reconciliation process was not a good vehicle for the DOGE cuts because the reconciliation process is meant for mainly for mandatory spending accounts, and most of the DOGE cuts are discretionary spending. So that's why you're not seeing a lot of DOGE cuts on the big, beautiful bill. But as for a rescission process, which is different than reconciliation, if a rescission package is put forward, and we'll probably see one sometime today or tomorrow or sometime this week, and it's going to be $9 billion, not all of the DOGE cuts. The president can then withhold the spending on that money for 45 days. Now, a normal rescission, if it's submitted, if Congress doesn't act on it in those 45 days, or if it only partially passes the rescissions package, the president loses the ability to use rescissions to get the rest of that money. So if we don't get all of the USAID money approved by Congress within 45 days when this package comes forward, we then lose the ability to get that cuts. So what a pocket rescission is, and this is really the strategy that I think that the MAGA movement should be urging, is to use pocket rescissions, is that if a rescissions package is put forward within 45 days of the end of the fiscal year, so September 30th, and that means a package submitted sometime after August 18th timeframe, then it automatically happens. And the reason it automatically happens is that the president can withhold funding for 45 days. That's statutory authority under the Impoundment Control Act. That 45 days then goes past September 30th. Once you're past September 30th, the authority to spend that money in fiscal year 25 lapses. In other words, no matter what you do, no matter what Congress does, although Congress should and can at that point vote for those packages, the rescission package automatically happens. In other words, if these rescissions packages come in after roughly August 18th, we get the DOGE cuts automatically. And so I think that that's the strategy that the White House should employ. I would urge them, after they put this first package forward tomorrow, to not put any more rescissions packages on DOGE cuts until after August 18th. Because if they put one forward, as they are this week, and again, if it fails, we lose the ability to automatically get them after August 18th. So that's basically the rescissions process and what a pocket rescission is.
Okay, so let's explain the package this week that's being put forward. I just want to make sure we're clear on this. If it fails, the president cannot or cannot put forward the pocket rescission. He can still put forward the pocket rescission even if this package this week fails.
No. If the package this week fails, then we cannot use a pocket rescission on it. That's why we should urge the White House not to put forward any more rescissions packages until later.
Okay.
Now, that also means that everyone in the conservative movement, all of the America First MAGA, audience viewers have, they need to fully support the rescissions packages coming forward this week. We need to get all of those cuts done. Congress needs to approve that one. But if we submit the additional cuts, all of the rest of the DOGE cuts later this year, they automatically happen through the pocket rescissions process.
What kind of support do you have in Congress for the rescission package? Where does that stand?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of support for the current package that's coming forward. Now, there's a lot of questions. Will Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, will they block it in the Senate, or will they support it? And I don't know yet, and I'm hoping that they support it. But there is some risk in putting this forward. And I think part of the reason that this package is being put forward is a lot of members of Congress are demanding that we take action. And I totally get that. I want the DOGE cuts done as much as anyone, except for maybe Elon Musk, who put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into getting this stuff done. But understand that strategically, it's not helpful. And I think that the big deficit here is that most members of Congress, and staffers included, don't know what a pocket rescission is because they are rarely used. It has not been done in a while, probably several decades. I'd have to check the history on this. And the reason is that normally at the end of the fiscal year, one, you don't have a president that's serious about spending cuts, and two, those funds have already been spent. So there's really usually not money really to rescind at that point. But this administration will have a significant amount of money that is still unspent that we can then use a pocket rescission on. And that's why this has not yet gained traction in Congress, although I've been talking to members of Congress. Once they get this, they're fully supportive. They get it, and they're stopping this demand for DOGE cuts now because they understand that by doing that, they're actually jeopardizing a sure thing of getting them later.
I know that Trump likes to do something that is atypical, right? So I would imagine that the president would really like this idea of a pocket rescission. You could sell it to him just based on the fact that it hasn't been done in a really long time, and it's an unusual, historic way of doing something. So I would imagine that he likes that idea. And it's very important that you're telling the public this too, right? Wade, because people are wanting the cuts so badly. Okay, they're feeling like they've been disillusioned, that that they didn't get what they were promised. So if people aren't supporting the DOGE cuts in a package now, they have to understand why, and they have to understand the strategy. Now, Mike Johnson is going to be integral in this, right? He kind of glazes over the fact that budget cuts were supposed to have been implemented in the big bill. He, says Trump got everything he wanted there. And there's still debates on how much it actually adds to the national debt. This is what he said about it if it passed in the Senate. This is Mike Johnson. Listen.
We have the entire America First agenda wrapped into this one big, beautiful bill. That's why we call it that. It's President Trump's promises to the American people, and it's our promises, all of us said on the campaign trail. We got to deliver this product. Now, I think we will. I mean, this is part of the process. Remember, before we got it passed in the House last Thursday, there was lots of grumbling and lots of questions, a lot of doubt. The critics and the media and the Democrats said we couldn't get it done, but we did in the end, and I believe the Senate will do the same.
Does Mike Johnson support rescissions?
I believe he will. I believe that he will put his support behind this. Trust but verify. I I'm not going to, bet my home that Mike Johnson will land the plane correctly
Safe.
here. But I do think that he will support, if this package is submitted and today, tomorrow, early this or sometime this week, I do think that he will aggressively attempt to get it across the finish line. The question is, will the moderates in the House help, or will they get in the way? That remains to be seen. Will the Senate support it? And look, to your first point before this one, it is counterintuitive because we live in a town here in DC where the establishment is constantly telling us that they're going to do it later. And so I understand that it is counterintuitive that people want DOGE cuts now, but this is one instance where the president's agenda is best served by waiting a little bit longer and getting the DOGE cuts later. And then at that point, it really is kind of irrelevant what Mitch McConnell or the Senate or the House do, although we would still want them to vote and approve those packages. The key point here is that we don't need to rely on them to get them done. They will happen automatically at that point.
Real quick, before we run out of time, I want to ask you about the future of DOGE. Elon Musk might not be at the helm, but he is optimistic about the future. Elon says that DOGE can still achieve $1 trillion in cuts. Your former boss, who is now the OMB director, once again, Russ Vought, is integral to that effort. Do you believe that's still feasible? That's a feasible number?
Yes, I absolutely do. There's certainly at least $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse that we can get at. I think that the 1-2 punch of Elon Musk bringing an outsider's perspective, a business tycoon's perspective. I mean, who thinks to go through all of the phone lines to see which phone lines are being used? That's not how a DC mind would think. So that was step one. Now that I think that it can shift to someone who institutionally understands how these agencies operate, and it can then go after programmatic cuts. I do believe that $1 trillion is an achievable number. Over what time scale? Will that be 1, 2, 3 years? But I do think that we can get at least $1 trillion in cuts over that time span. And again, we're already getting 1.6 trillion in cuts on the mandatory side through the big beautiful bill.
Well, you know what, Wade, that gives us some hope here. I'm one of those people that was probably complaining about not enough DOGE cuts. So I think it's good that you're out here explaining it to us. And I think that the White House is going to have to do, they have their work cut out for them as well, and making sure the American people, if they choose to go this route, understand the effort and how it serves the president's agenda. So thanks for joining us today, Wade Miller. You can find his piece out there on AmericaRenewing.com, where he explains this in great detail, AmericaRenewing.com. It's good to see you, Wade.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.